everyone, it's Tara. Welcome back to my channel, Tara Talks Books, where we talk everything bookish. So today I'm going to be doing a list of my top 10 historical romances. I'm actually doing this in collaboration with a bunch of lovely booktubers, as well as I believe some bookstagrammers and some book bloggers are doing it as well. So it was put together over on the Romance Readathon Discord, and so a bunch of people are joining. I will leave everything in the description box below. Check out other people's top historical romance lists. I know some people did top 20, some people did top 12. So it just is a variety. So you get a lot of different options. So for my list, I did not repeat authors. I ended up choosing one book from an author. So I have multiple books by Stacey Reed or Lisa Kleypas that I really enjoy, but I picked one that I thought was my most favorite, and I put that on the list in the ranking. I will also have some honorable mentions at the end because it was so hard to narrow it down. So without further ado, let's get into the list. So number 10 is actually a recent read for me, and that one is Lady Ruthless by Scarlett Scott. This was my first read by Scarlett Scott, and I really enjoyed it. This one is about Lady Calliope Manning. So she is writing confessions of a sinful earl to ruin the reputation of the Earl of Sinclair, also known as Sin, because she really wants to ruin his reputation, and she wants, payback for what he has done, what she believes he has done to her brother. And so she's writing it as him, and it ruins his reputation. It ruins his opportunities of marriage because now his estate is in financial ruin because of these rumors and these papers. And the girl that he was supposed to wed to kind of help him out of that financial ruin has, she's hit the hills. She's not going to marry him. She's gone because of these rumors and the memoirs that are coming out. And so, of course, Sin is extremely upset, and he is going to find whoever is writing these and make them pay. And so he ends up capturing, because it's captor captive in the beginning, he ends up capturing Lady Calliope because he realizes she has been writing these papers. And he basically says you are going to marry me because one, I need the money and I need to fix my reputation. And so she ends up agreeing because she doesn't want to ruin her reputation because she's been writing these papers, and also ruin her brother's reputation as well. So she wants to protect him. So she ends up going along with it. So I really enjoyed this historical romance because it started right off in the action. I also enjoyed the chemistry between the two main characters, between Calliope and Sin. I thought that was really palpable, and the spice was perfection in this one. I also want to mention that there are tropes of enemies to lovers because she thinks that he has murdered her brother. Then there's obviously that marriage of convenience for them. And then in the beginning, there's that aspect of captor captive. I really enjoyed this one. I will read more from Scarlett Scott. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. Number 9 is also another recent read. I have read it this year, and that one is Would I Lie to the Duke by Ava Lee. So this one follows Jessica McGill, and she is in desperate need of investors for her family's business. Some major things have happened. Her parents have passed away. There's been a fire on her farm, and her siblings are trying to do the best they can to make it work and continue the business. And so she's really determined to make it succeed. So she is actually going to London, and so she goes to London to find investors for her farm. But people aren't really listening to her. They don't want to invest in somebody they don't know or who doesn't have a backing of a bigger a duke or a lady or somebody like that in this time period. So she kind of disguises herself as she does disguise herself as Lady Whitfield to go to this business bazaar that is held by the Duke of Rotherby. And so she goes to it, and she's disguised as Lady Whitfield. And it kind of goes from there. She meets the Duke. Obviously, there's an attraction. He really likes how clever she is and how she knows about business. This one is very Cinderella-esque. There is a class difference between the Duke and Jessica. I really enjoyed that the historical romance takes place at a business bazaar where people show like their inventions or their business ideas. I thought that was a unique aspect and something I hadn't seen in a historical romance before. So I thought that was a really unique setting. I also enjoyed like how they met. That was a fun scene to read. I also enjoyed just how clever Jess was, and I enjoyed the Duke of Rotherby, Noel. I liked his male friendships that were in this book. So yeah, if you haven't read this one, I definitely suggest checking it out. It was a lot of fun to read, and I enjoyed that setting of the business bazaar. I thought that was really unique. So coming in at number 8 is also a pretty recent read. I either read it, no, I did. I read it this year. And so that one is A Rogue of One's Own by Evie Dunmore. So this is the second one in a League of Extraordinary Women series. I actually liked this one more than I did the first one. This one follows Lady Lucy, and her and the Oxford suffragists are trying to put together money and purchase a publishing house. But unbeknownst to her, somebody else also is interested in the publishing house. And so she ends up buying half the share for her and the Oxford suffragists. And so the other half, though, is actually purchased by her nemesis, Tristan. It's like her childhood nemesis. And so she doesn't want him as part of the publishing house. She wants to own it all to herself. And so she says like, oh, we'll buy you out. And he refuses. And he says, the only way I would buy you out is for a night in your bed. And she's like, oh, goodness. So it goes from there. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed this hate to love romance. Tristan is such a protective hero that would like do anything for Lucy. Obviously, he's been secretly pining for her. I enjoyed this one, like I said, even more than the first book in the series. Lucy and Tristan are both like strong characters that both have had to endure like family hardships and things like where family hasn't always been supportive of them. So Lucy has a cat and he's a part of the book. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I also thought that there was a really fun scene at the publishing house. A bunch of cards come in for Tristan, and there are coined Ballantine cards, which I thought that was a cute little play on words because his last name is Ballantine and you hear the Valentine. I don't know. I'm a sucker for a pun, so I thought that was great. Definitely check this one out if you haven't already. Number 7 is If the Duke Demands by Anna Harrington. This is the first one in Capturing the Carlisle series by her. This is the only one I have read in this series, but I truly enjoyed this one. This is kind of like a lesson in seduction book. So Miranda Hotchkiss, she has only ever wanted to marry Robert Carlyle. And like, so she takes things into her own hands, and like she disguises herself and she goes into his bedchamber to like surprise him at like a masquerade ball that they're at. So when she goes into his bedchamber, they end up like passionately kissing and like, but then the masks come off, and that's when she realizes, and she's like horrified, that it's not Robert. It is actually her, his older brother, the Duke of Trent, Sebastian. And so she's just like, oh my goodness, this is the wrong chamber. What have I done? And I love this meet cute. He's also shocked that it's Miranda in his bed because he knows she's been around their family for a long time. So he knows who she is. He's just never seen her that way. So he obviously offers her like a deal to avoid scandal. He will help her win like her brother's heart if she can help him find a wife. And so it goes from there. I love that aspect of it as well, where like Sebastian's trying to get her to get Robert to notice Miranda, and then she's trying to find him a wife, but of course things are happening between them two. There's a growing attraction, and it goes from there. And maybe Sebastian just wants to keep her all to himself. And I just loved it. So yeah, If the Duke Demands is my number 7. Definitely check it out. I want to read more from Anna Harrington in this series. I really enjoyed this one. Coming in at number 6 is The Viscount Who Loved Me by Julia Quinn. This is part of the Bridgerton series. This is actually the only one I've read in that series, but I absolutely love this one. Kate and Anthony's story is beautiful. So this one follows Kate and Anthony. So obviously Anthony is a Viscount and he is the oldest in his family, so he's going to carry on. And so he needs to marry, and so he's decided this is the year he's going to marry. He's already, so when the season comes, he's already decided on who he's going to marry. It ends up being Kate's sister, and Kate is like, no, you have a horrible reputation of being a rake. You will not make my sister happy. So she's very determined, and she does not want her sister to marry him because she just doesn't think that he's fit for her sister. And so she does things to obviously like keep him away from her, which obviously makes Anthony mad, and it makes him more determined to try and win her sister's hand. But of course, as they're like butting heads, there's this growing attraction between them two. And so it goes from there. I really enjoyed this one. Kate and Anthony have like excellent chemistry in this book. I also say like they've both gone through things where they can connect. They've also like both lost a parent. And so like they connect on that level, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. This is obviously like a hate to love. It is a fun time. I also love that like Newton is in it. There's a dog. So anyways, I really enjoyed this one, and this comes in as my number 6. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. It is lovely. So now we are on to my top 5. So coming in at number 5 is The Eris Effect by Courtney Milan. I really enjoyed this one. I read it quite a while ago, but I loved it. So this follows Jane Fairfield, and she's always seemingly doing something wrong in public. There's always something, and she just, etiquette isn't proper, or she doesn't do this, or so she wears something that is not fashionable. And so like there's all this gossip about her. So even her dowry that she has doesn't entice any gentleman to marry her because of this. But Jane doesn't want to get married. She'll do anything, including risk humiliation, to not get married to save her sister. So she needs to remain unmarried to keep her sister safe. Of course, Oliver Marshall he's like a bastard son of a duke. He was raised in like humble circumstances. And so he has to really do everything right. And falling in love with Miss Jane Fairfield, who does everything wrong, is a disaster. However, he just can't help himself. I really enjoyed this one. I just loved it. I loved how like she was trying to protect her sister, and she would do anything, including, you know, putting herself out there to basically be made fun of by people just to help support her sister. And then obviously Oliver seeing through that facade and realizing that it's a facade, and realizing, oh, there is a reason behind it. She's smarter and wittier than she looks. She's not doing this on purpose, and he sees through her. And I just loved that aspect. I love the relationship, and I just thought it was beautiful. So I don't know, this one isn't talked about very often, or at least not recently, but I really enjoyed it. Number 4 is Never Seduce a Scot by Maya Banks. I read this one quite a while ago, but I loved it. So this one is part of the Montgomery and Armstrong series. So Eveline is part of the Armstrong family, and so she is very loved and protected. She did have an accident. I believe she like fell off a horse or something. And so they feel like something's happened to her because she hasn't spoken. Like something's happened to her. What has actually happened to her is that she she's either become deaf or hard of hearing because of the accident, and her family doesn't know, and she wants it that way because she's kind of content with her life of seclusion. She's able to kind of do what she wants. So the two families are obviously like warring or fighting. There's definitely tension between them. So the king's like, you're going to marry people from the clan. So Graham Montgomery is going to marry Eveline Armstrong to hopefully like get these families together and stop like the turmoil and the fighting between the two of them, between the two clans. And so she is now betrothed to marry him. It's an arranged marriage. And so his voice is like extremely deep, and it's like, I would say like probably like a baritone. And so like she can kind of hear him. She can like feel the vibrations. And I think she can kind of hear him. And she really learns to like read lips. And I thought that was a really unique like aspect of this book. Like Graham notices like he doesn't think that there's anything wrong with her. He notices that like she's intelligent just by the way she looks. Like she's very like observant, and so like he's like noticing that within her. I really liked that aspect of it. So Graham is like a Scottish warrior, so this is more set in Scotland. I really enjoyed this one. Definitely a good read. It has some good representation for historical romance. I really enjoyed it. Coming in at number 3 is The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare. I absolutely love this one. This was probably my first historical romance I ever read when I started reading historical romances. And so this one follows the Duke of Ashbury, who has returned from war. So there's definitely like scarring there. And so we find out that his betrothed has left him. But so Emma is a vicar's daughter and seamstress, and she made the wedding dress for the Duke's betrothed, but obviously the wedding's not happening. And so they refuse to pay, and she's like, I need the money. So she bursts into his office and is like wearing the wedding dress and is like, pay me for my work. And so it goes from there. He ends up needing a wife, so he's like, okay, you'll do. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And obviously it goes from there. I really enjoyed this one. I loved this one. I loved how they met. I loved their banter. I loved their chemistry between the two. This one is a marriage of convenience, and it's just beautiful. I enjoyed it. One of my favorites. So number 2 is Devil in Winter by Lisa Kleypas. This is number 3 in the Wallflower series. I absolutely love this one. This one follows Evie and Sebastian. It's a marriage of convenience. She needs to escape her family because they're trying to force her to marry a cousin because they want control of her dowry and her money. And she's like, no, I don't want that. And so she takes it upon herself and is like, Sebastian is in a hard place and he needs her like dowry. So she's like, okay, you marry me, we go to Gretna Green, we do this, and I will help you with your financial troubles, and you can help me get out of this arranged marriage. Of course, it's so much more than that. I really enjoyed this one by Lisa Kleypas. Sebastian and Evie are like my favorite couples. There is also mention Evie does have like a stutter. So that representation is in this historical romance as well. I enjoyed that aspect of her kind of coming into her own. And I absolutely love Sebastian as a hero. He kind of does some bad things in the previous book, so you want to not like him, but then you do. I mean, at least I did. So definitely check out Devil in Winter. It was amazing. I love Evie and Sebastian's story. Coming in at number 1 is probably no surprise if you've ever watched my channel, and that one is Her Wicked Marquez by Stacy Reid. I love this book. I love anything Stacy Reid writes. So this one is the second one in the Sinful Wallflower series. I really enjoyed this one. This one actually follows Marianne Fitzwilliam, and she's like witty and bookish, and so of course she's a wallflower and nobody takes notice of her. To put off like an arranged marriage to a much older man, she devises a plan, and she ends up seeing Nicholas, the Marquess of Rothby, coming out of the window of a bedchamber, and so she puts it out that it's her bedchamber to cause a scandal and get her out of this marriage, this arranged marriage. He ends up going along with it for reasons of his own. I really enjoyed this one. It has a wonderful side plot that I really enjoyed. I like the banter between them two and the chemistry between them two. It was excellent. So I do have a couple of honorable mentions, and the first one is Bombshell by Sarah McLean. I really enjoyed this one. So this one follows Lady Cecily Talbot, who was like embroiled in a scandal, and so she kind of like takes it on and is like, okay, and she's like, I'm just gonna live how I want, despite the reputation. And so like has rendezvous with like gentlemen, but they're not actually what they look like or what they seem. But the only one who kind of notices this is Caleb Calhoun, who has known Cecily for years. Like he was her brother's best friend, so he kind of knows and he notices what she's up to. So he kind of like tries to keep her out of trouble, and it goes from there. I really enjoy how Cecily can take care of herself, and she's kind of a part of this organization that helps women. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. This was my first Sarah McLean that I read, and I really enjoyed it. I'll read more from her. Another honorable mention is Tempest by Beverly Jenkins. This is, I believe, number 3 in the Old West series by her. I've only read this one, and I read it as a standalone. So Reagan ends up like kind of being like a mail order bride. She does it to herself. She wants to get married. It's like an arranged marriage. And so she heads out, and she ends up accidentally shooting Dr. Colton, who is like her betrothed, like she's going to marry him, because something happens, and she ends up thinking that he is, I think they get robbed in the coach, and so she ends up thinking he's one of the bad guys, and so she ends up shooting him, and it goes from there. They have a really interesting meet cute in that instance, because obviously the minute she meets him, she shoots him. I really enjoyed, he's a single dad. I enjoyed that aspect of his daughter is a big part of the book. So I thought that was good to see. And I also enjoyed how like Reagan is a strong character. She can take care of herself. So those are all my honorable mentions. I will say though, author honorable mentions, Stacy Reid is probably my favorite historical romance author. I've read, I think maybe 4 or 5 books from her now, and I've given them 4 and 5 stars. I really enjoy them. And then also Lisa Kleypas, I feel like you can't go wrong with her books either. I've read maybe 5 or 6 of hers, and I've really enjoyed hers. So those are 2 historical authors that if you're looking for books, I really think that you'll find something that you enjoy. Let me know what your favorite historical romance is in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you'd like to. Bye!